Hey all, in previous videos I have covered all the topics of forensic odontology, that is its definition, what forensic odontologists do, types of identification procedures. Now the last topic which is left is crime investigations. So in this video we will discuss about crime investigations, right? In crime investigations we are supposed to cover two main topics, that is bite marks and lip prints. Let's discuss one by one, right? So the first topic is bite marks. So bite marks are the marks that are caused by the teeth either alone or in combination with other mouth parts, right? Other mouth parts such as tongue, etc., right? So this definition was given by Macdonald. Bite marks or biting is usually associated with fights or child abuse or sex crimes, right? So bite marks are considered as primeval type of assault. Bite marks are also known as dental fingerprints, right? Because they are very much specific to an individual, right? Such as fingerprints that are specific to an individual, the same way bite marks are specific to an individual, right? The classification of bite marks. So there are two classifications. The first one is given by Macdonald, in which he classified bite marks into three types, that is tooth pressure marks, second one is tongue pressure marks, and the third one is tooth scrape marks. So the first one, that is tooth pressure marks, in which what happens that there we can see incisal and occlusal surfaces of the teeth on the bite marks. So incisal and occlusal surfaces are seen on the bite marks basically. So the marks are produced on the tissue as a result of direct application of the pressure of the teeth, right? Now the type 2, that is tongue pressure marks. So what happens when sufficient amount of tissue is taken into the mouth? So what happens, the tongue will press the tissue against the rigid areas such as the lingual or the palatal surfaces of the teeth, right? Plus the hard palate also. The tongue will press the tissue, right, against the hard palate also. So the palatal rugae will also be seen in the bite marks, right? Now the third one, that is tooth scrape marks. So whenever the person tries to scrape the tissue material or scratch it out, then we will able to see the tooth scrape marks across the bitten material, right? Also we will able to see superficial abrasions in this case, right? So this classification was given by Macdonald. Next classification of bite marks is Websters Classification, that deals with the bite marks present on the food items, right? So the type 1 is in which there is limited depth of penetration of teeth over the food item basically. Type 2 is with considerable penetration of teeth, right? And the type 3 is with complete or near complete penetration of food item with slight marks, right? So the type 1 with limited penetration was on the food items such as hard chocolates, right? And the type 2 with considerable penetration of teeth was on apple or other fruits basically, firm fruits you can say. And the type 3 with complete or near to complete penetration was seen on food items such as cheese and banana, right? Now the appearance of bite marks. So it depends upon the type of injury. It can be bruises or contusion, it can be laceration, or it can be avulsion, right? So injury can be in the form of these three, right, due to bite marks. So what happens, firstly indentations of the bite marks will be seen over the compressed tissue, right, or the compressed skin surface due to tooth pressure basically. After, as we know that the skin is very much elastic and it will try to regain its contour, right? So this indentations will be disappeared, right? After that, a brief period of edema over the bite area will be seen, right? And as we know that the skin is compressed, due to which minute vessels which are present in our tissue will be ruptured, right? And when this edema subsides, right, subcutaneous bleeding will be apparent. And this bleeding is basically due to the ruptured minute vessels. So this bleeding or these ruptured minute vessels will impart a purplish or reddish color to the or discoloration of that tissue, and this discoloration or this type of injury is known as bruises or contusion, right? Now if the intensity of the bite is greater, so there may be a break in the integrity of the skin surface, so it will result in laceration of that tissue particular or skin surface, right? And the most extreme form of the bite mark injury is avulsion, in which the tissue is bitten off, right? Identifying the injury as a bite mark. So the bite mark is having the characteristics such as circular elliptical marks, which are basically due to upper and lower arches, right? Upper and lower arches, and the central area of ecchymosis, which is basically due to tongue pressure, right? Class characteristics depending upon the tooth involved, right? So incisors produce rectangular bite mark, right, whereas canines will produce triangular or rectangular depending upon the amount of adhesion basically, right? And thirdly, premolars and molars will produce spherical or point shaped bite marks, right? Now the individual characteristics. So the class characteristics may in turn have features such as fractures, rotations and spacing. So these features are basically specific to a individual tooth, right? So these features will also be seen on the or may also be replicated on the bite marks also, right? As we know that bite marks are associated with child abuse or sexual crimes, right? So the bite marks can be seen on any part of the tissue, but females are most often bitten on the breasts and legs, whereas male child are prone to be bitten on the genitals, and the adult males are bitten on the fingers, arm or shoulders, right, which are often due to fights. Now the investigations of bite mark, right, which starts with the preliminary questions such as, is the injury a bite mark? If a bite, was it caused by human teeth? Was it caused by an adult or a child? Right? Are there any unique or individual characteristics in the bite mark, etc.? So these are the preliminary questions, right? Now the bite mark evidence collection from the victim. So the first one are the case demographics that should be recorded, right? So for that purpose, vital information should be collected first, right, such as name, age, sex of the victim, right? Also the police case number, date of examination and the name of examiners should also be collected, right? This information should be there. After that, visual examination of the bite mark should be done. So the location or the orientation of the mark is noted, type of injury, what type of injury is it, right? Whether it is laceration or avulsion or simply a contusion or bruises, right? The shape, size and color of that bite mark, right? Contour and texture of the skin or the elasticity of the bite site should be examined properly, right? Now the photography of the bite mark or that injury. So the orientation photographs should be taken depicting the location of that injury basically, or the bite mark. So the colored pictures can also be taken, or black and white photographs from different angles may be taken, right? Secondly, close-up photographs are also required. So a rigid reference scale is used in this case. And the example is ABFO number 2. This is the name of the scale which is used, right? So this scale is basically placed around the bite mark or the site of injury, right? And then the close-up photographs are taken. The point should be noted that the camera lens, the long axis of the lens should be perpendicular to the surface of the bitten skin in order to prevent distortion basically. Now if the bite is on curved surface or the curved tissue part, so the upper and lower arch marks are wide apart. In that case, separate photographs of each mark should be taken. Now the collection of saliva through a saliva swab basically, and saliva is also used as a part of investigation. Saliva is having WBCs, epithelial cells, right, which is basically a source of DNA, right? So it is playing a major role in crime investigation. So as we know that the saliva will be left behind over that tissue or the skin surface. So a cotton swab moistened with distilled water is used for swabbing. After that, this swab is air dried for about 30 minutes, and this should be collected in a well labeled envelope and stored at 4 °C to preserve it for a long time, right? Now, in the absence of visible bite marks, we use high intensity light sources such as UV light basically, right, to locate the stains from the body fluids, and this enables to trace the saliva. Now the impressions of the bite marks should also be recorded from that tissue surface only, right? So the tooth indentations that are present over the bite mark should be recorded with vinyl polysiloxane, right? This is the material of choice, and this material may be reinforced with dental stone or acrylic or impression compound to prevent dimensional change. Also, the impression of the victim's teeth is very much important to rule out self-inflicted bites. Now the evidence collection from the suspect. For that purpose, we are supposed to follow some protocols. Firstly, we should have a court order or a warrant against that suspect. Only then we can proceed the investigations basically, or collect the evidence from the suspect, right? After that, a detailed clinical examination of that suspect should be done. Both extra and intraoral examination is needed. After that, photographs of the suspect teeth in both occlusion and open bite are taken, right? Now the impression of both the arches of the suspect should be taken from rubber-based impression material or irreversible hydrocolloid material, right? And after that, these impressions should be poured in dental stone. Bite registration is also required in cases when we are unable to take the impressions, right? So the bite registration can also be done on the or with the help of thin sheet of wax, right? Saliva samples should also be taken from the suspect in order to compare it with the saliva samples taken from the victim, right? So saliva swabs from the buccal vestibules are taken, right? Now the evidences which are collected from the suspect should be stored in a containers, and these containers should be well labeled. These labels must include police name, case number, date, time, place, witnesses, etc. Now the bite mark analysis and comparison. It seems to be very easy to compare the bite marks present on the skin tissue and the suspect and that of the suspect's teeth basically. but it is very difficult. One should consider the things such as elasticity of the bitten tissue or the skin, right? And the uh, possible distortion produced during the photography, right? And the jaw movements during biting the tissue, basically. So bite mark analysis is very much difficult, basically. So the first procedure is metric analysis, in which we are supposed to measure the size of bite mark so that we can compare it with the suspect's dental model, right? So the metric analysis can be done via measuring instruments such as caliper, or it can be done with the help of computer softwares, right? Secondly, there are two methods such as direct method and indirect method. In direct method, we can directly place the bite mark over the suspect's dental model, right? And thirdly, the indirect method, in which the suspect's teeth are traced on the clear acetate, and then it is superimposed on the life size bite mark photographs, right? And lastly, 2D computer based methods are also used. The computer based methods that use the software programs such as Adobe Photoshop. So this is the name of the software that is used in 2D computer based methods, right? Now the conclusions in bite mark analysis. So there are 4 conclusions. So the first one is definite biter, right? So in this case, what happens, there is characteristic matches between the bite mark dimensions or pattern and that of the suspect's teeth, right? And there is absence of any unexplainable discrepancies, right? In probable biter also, there is absence of any unexplainable discrepancies, and bite mark shows some degree of specificity. So some degree of specificity is seen in probable biter, right? Now the third one is possible biter. So the bite mark and the suspect's dentition are consistent, but there are no characteristic matches to be absolutely sure about it. The similarity is basically non-specific, right? In this case, so that's why we call this suspect as a possible biter. And the last one, that is the not the biter case, when the bite mark and the suspect's dentition are not consistent, right? Now the next topic is lip prints. So tsuchihashi give a term, that is sulci labiorum ruborum, which simply means that there are wrinkles and grooves visible on the lips, right? So the imprints of these grooves is referred to as lip prints, right? And the study or the examination of these lip prints is referred to as chyloscopy or chiloscopy. Now the classification of lip prints. It is also given by Tsuchihashi. So the type 1, in which clear-cut vertical grooves that run across the entire lip, as you can see in this picture. It is also having a subtype which is similar to type 1 but do not cover the entire lip. It may cover half of the lip, or simply it does not cover the entire lip, right? Type 2 is branched grooves. So you can see the branched pattern of the grooves. Intersected grooves, the type 3. Type 4 is for the reticular grooves, and the type 5 is the most complex one, in which the grooves that cannot be morphologically differentiated, right? So this classification was given by Tsuchihashi. So why we are studying about lip prints? Because lip prints can also be used as an evidence for crime investigations, basically, right? Basically, lip prints are produced by the mark of lipsticks, but in few cases the lip prints are basically invisible, right? For that purpose, or to visualize these invisible lip prints, we use aluminium powder or magnetic powder to investigate, right? Now the vermilion borders and edges of the lips are having salivary glands and the sebaceous glands, right? So these glands basically secrete oil and moisture. So these oil and moisture basically helps in developing or the development of the latent lip print, right? Now the disadvantages of lip print investigation. So the first one is there is always a doubt of permanence of the lip shape, size, morphology, etc. Right? So whenever there is a trauma of our lip, the scarring will be, or it will result in scarring basically, right? Even after surgical treatment, the shape, the size of the lips, and even the morphology of grooves is altered. Now the second disadvantage is the anatomic position of the lip grooves. As we know that the lip grooves are present near the zone of transition, that is very much closer to the vermilion border of our lips, right? So whenever a lip print is produced, it may differ in appearance depending upon the pressure applied and the direction of pressure, right? So the lip prints caused by one individual may be mistakenly identified as those for the another. So the lip prints are not a reliable feature for investigation basically, right? So this was all about crime investigation. Thank you for watching.